Hi. 8 months ago, I told you who I thought were the most and least fun non-survivors to play in the game. Yes, apparently I have to say that now, as YouTube doesn't like when I say the K word. Now this time I asked you to tell me where you would rank each of them, and here's what you, my community, had to say. Again, on the non-survivor side of the game. Now in total, we had more than 100,000 votes, so thank you to everybody who voted. This time around, we're only gonna be using 4 tiers because YouTube image polls only allows for 4 options. So we're gonna be using C through S tier. And previously, when I've done these videos, I scored it on which tier won the most votes. Now this works when a single tier gets more than 50% of the vote. However, the results get a little bit skewed when no tier has at least 50% of the vote, and then you have a couple tiers or more being pretty close together. For instance, this time around, Nurse was at 33% for S tier, but 35% for C tier. So C tier technically won, but it's not really fair to say that's how the community feels because it's much more spread than that. In cases like that, it really should be averaged more in the middle. Now, one of my viewers, whose name I'm terribly sorry, but I cannot pronounce, suggested a more fair and accurate way to come up with a final result in cases like this. So I've adapted their method and we're gonna use it tonight in those cases where not a single tier got at least 50% of the vote. Now to explain how it works quickly, if a tier gets over 50% of the vote, that tier wins. If no tier gets at least 50% of the vote, then each tier is given a point value. So 2 points for S tier, 1 point for A tier, -1 point for B tier, and -2 points for C tier. We then take each tier's percentage and multiply it by that tier's point value, add this up for every tier, and then we're left with a final number somewhere in the range of -200 to +200. Each tier is given a point range, and so the total points will then determine the final result. So we're gonna work our way from the bottom up and start with the C tier characters. So starting off, our C tier is Trapper. 54% voted for C tier. Now, I'd personally put him up in B tier. To me, it is very satisfying to get someone stuck in one of your traps when you're chasing them. Not as satisfying when you're chasing someone and someone across the map gets stuck in one of your traps. That's not fun. But when you can trap someone in one of your traps in the middle of a loop, oh, mwah. So good. But all that said, I totally understand. Even though I would put him in B tier, I understand why the community is at C tier. All right, next up in C tier, we have Hag with 54% of the vote for C tier as well. And I'm with you here. I'm not really in love with her playstyle. There's a lot of other characters that I'd rather play than Hag, to be honest. I used to really like Hag. I don't anymore. I'm with you. It's C tier. All right, next up we have Freddy with 67% voting C tier. And I'm not surprised at all with this result. I really want to like Freddy. I've tried to like Freddy, and I know there are some strong Freddy mains out there who enjoy playing as him, but I'm not there. I'm with the community on this one. I find him rather boring to play. So he's C tier to me, and the community felt the same way. All right, next up with 64% voting for C tier is the Twins. And honestly, I haven't played enough Twins to be sure myself. I think I played them probably for the 2nd time ever on stream the other night, and I actually had a blast. I had a ton of fun with them. But I also know they're really buggy, and given that no one plays Twins, I'm not surprised they ended up in C tier, because if they were really fun, a lot more people would play them, I would think. So I'll have to give them more time myself to make up a determination for me, but I can understand the community feeling C tier. All right, moving on to B tier, we have Doctor. 50% exactly voted B tier, so we're not gonna apply our formula just yet. Now, I'd put Doctor A tier myself. I do not enjoy going against Doctor, but I really do enjoy playing as him, as much as I hate to admit it. That said, I don't really ever feel that strong playing as Doctor, so I wonder if that kind of affected the results here. Because let's be honest, if you feel weak, it's not as fun sometimes. So I could see why the community voted him lower. All right, now this one surprised me. Bubba goes in B tier. So only 42% voted B tier, which makes this the first one to go below 50%. And the other tiers were pretty spread out. So using our special formula, it still remains B tier. So there you go. Now, personally, I do not like the chainsaw characters. It's just something about the gameplay I don't enjoy personally, but I understand why others would. So to be honest, I was a little surprised because I thought more people really liked playing Bubba. I don't. So I'm okay with it being B tier. I would probably put him C tier myself, but I kind of expected the community to put him higher. So anywho, he's B tier. All right, up next with 50% voting for B tier is Pig. Now I find stealth in this game to be very fun. I really enjoy playing as Pig. I think she's got a lot going for her in terms of fun. I don't think she's a very strong character, which may be why the community voted her lower, but I find her a ton of fun to play. I really enjoy sneaking up on survivors and scaring the crap out of them with that pig roar. Pig roar? It's kind of a weird roar for a pig to make, right? I don't know. To me, she's A tier, but I'm not surprised the community put her in B tier. So I respect the vote. All right, with 51% voting B tier, we have Clown, and I'd agree with that. He's fun enough, but I feel like there's a lot of other characters I'd rather play than Clown. Plus, I know a lot of people do not find him very fun to go against. So for me, that factors in a little bit as to how fun I find the character to play. If I know the other side is really just kind of enduring it and not having a fun time, then it kind of makes me less likely to pick them, to be honest. Because I always feel bad playing as him, which takes away from the fun. So there you go. With 42% voting B tier and a close spread between the other 3 tiers is Legion. So again, running this through our formula, we stick with B tier. Now for me, I'm at a really close line between A and B tier. I would put high B, low A tier. And it kind of depends on what I'm able to do in the trial. If I'm able to cause a lot of chaos, I love doing that as Legion. I love just running around, fast paced, nobody knows what's going on, and just cause all sorts of chaos. I love that as Legion, especially if you can get that 5th hit down. That feels so good. But if survivors know how to counter their ability by spreading out, not healing, etc., then they're not very fun. They feel pretty weak at that point, and not very fun. Now, their chase music is amazing, which adds to the fun for me, and to me, that means they have to automatically be at least B tier. So, I don't know. On the whole, I'd agree with the community. Overall B tier, but when you can really lock them in, cause a lot of chaos, have a bunch of fun, jam to some good chase music, they're a lot of fun in that case, and I would move them into A. All right, next up we have Trickster with 42% voting B tier, which is again sub 50%, but with a close spread between A and C tier as well, it still averages out to B tier. And I'd agree. Trickster's fun enough, but again, there's a bunch of other characters that I'd rather play as. I mean, when I'm in the mood to play a ranged attacker, I'd really, in almost every case, rather play Huntress. So I'm with the community on this one. He's B tier to me. All right, with 57% voting B tier is Knight. Now I'm kind of surprised on this one. He's really boring to me. I kind of expected, especially based on the way the community reacted to him at launch, I kind of expected him to be C tier, to be honest. He's an easy C tier in my mind. Honestly, I played him in the PTB. I liked him at first, and then I quickly got bored of him. I don't know that I've played him since release, which might be part of my problem. You know, I think he got a few buffs, and maybe he's better now. I don't know. He didn't seem to be all that much better to me. Maybe I just need to put in more time with him, but to me, he's C tier, and I kind of expected the community to go that way, but surprise, surprise. He's B tier. He was just cool at first, and then I got bored quickly. I don't know. All right, moving on to A tier. Our first one in A tier is Wraith. With 50% voting A tier, I would 100% agree. I think he was my first character I ever played in a live trial. I feel like I always have fun playing as Wraith. His ability is straightforward, easy to get the hang of. It's fun to go invisible and zoom around the map. Palette Shredder Wraith is a ton of fun, so I'll fully agree with the community on this one. All right, Hillbilly. This was spread out quite a bit. We had 31% voted S tier, 27% voted A tier, and 23% voted B tier. And so running it through our formula, the end result is A tier. And I'm not surprised at all by this one. I know Hillbilly is one of the more well-liked characters in the game. But as I said earlier, I personally do not enjoy the chainsaw characters. Now, I will completely admit that I am not good with Hillbilly, which no doubt factors into my ranking, personally. So for me, he's C tier, but I completely respect the community wanting to put him in A tier. And honestly, I expected that. Now, Nurse is our next A tier. So this one was pretty all over the place. 35% voted C tier, 33% voted S tier, and then there was a mix between A and B tiers. So this one we had to put through our formula, and the end result is A tier. And I agree. I think she's a ton of fun to play. That said, she is pretty tough to use, which might have influenced some of the community's feelings. I also know a lot of people really don't like going against her, which too could have factored into how this poll played out. Now, I really enjoy playing as Nurse, even though I wouldn't say I'm very good with her. It is incredibly satisfying to get a hit off on a well-timed blink. But she's not S tier for me because I can't play her for a very long time because I just get, I don't know, I get a headache from her fatigue state, just all that motion all the time. It just, I don't know, it gets to me over time. So I can't play very many back-to-back trials with Nurse. All that to say, I completely understand why the votes were so spread on this one, and to me, A tier is very fitting. I like A tier, that's comfortable for me. All right, next up we have Myers with 44% voting A tier. 27% voted S tier, but it wasn't enough to get him bumped up into S tier, but it did help him lock in A tier overall. And it's a mixed bag for me. When you play Myers and your perks just synthesize really well together and things go your way, I think he's a ton of fun. He's got a lot of really fun add-ons as well that can really change up how the trial goes. But when things don't go well, then he's not fun at all to play, in my opinion. So for me, there's times where he's either S tier or C tier. and not a whole lot of in between. So I'm comfortable with an A tier kind of averaging out. That works for me. But I'm also not surprised that the overall community sentiment was A tier. All right, next up we have Spirit with 48% voting A tier and a pretty close spread between S and B tiers. So she'll remain at A tier, and I'd 100% agree with this. Spirit is very fun and rewarding to play. I think she's also pretty challenging, which I find fun. So to me, I think A tier just really fits right for her. Now, I was very excited to see Plague with 51% voting A tier. Y'all know she's my main, so for me personally, she'd obviously be S tier. But objectively speaking, I'm very happy to see her in A tier. I think her gameplay is more interesting and involved than most, and she takes a lot of setup and strategy early game to be able to really truly start snowballing survivors as the trial goes on. And then there's a wild card of, are the survivors going to cleanse or not? Which always makes it an interesting and varied experience for me. So yeah, I was very happy to see her A tier. All right, next up in A tier, we have Ghostface. Now, he got 45% S tier, 31% A tier, and 19% B tier. So even though a majority voted for S tier, because there was enough of a spread between A and B tiers, he actually ended up being A tier overall. Now, I'm not surprised with the end result. I do agree with A tier. I think he's A tier fun, in my opinion. But I'm actually a little surprised that so many voted for B and C tier even to be able to drag him out of S tier overall. That kind of surprised me. I think he's fun to play. You know I like the stealth characters, so I'm happy with A tier overall. All right, Deathslinger with 52% voting A tier. I was very happy about this one because I personally feel Deathslinger is underrated, and I feel like not a lot of people play him. But even after his nerfs, I think he's a ton of fun to play, and I definitely think more people should play Deathslinger. He's fun. Next up in A tier, we have Pyramid Head with 54% voting for this tier. And I'm actually surprised he's not S tier. I kind of figured he would end up in that category. Now, I have trouble with him personally. I'm not very good with Pyramid Head, but that's a me thing. That's not a problem with his character. I'm pretty sure when I actually invest the time into learning how to play Pyramid Head, I'm probably going to have a lot of fun with him. So while I kind of expected him to be S tier with the community, I'm okay with the result. All right, next up we have Nemesis with 51% voting A tier. Now, I love playing as Nemesis. I'd probably stick him in S tier personally, but I don't think that's a very popular opinion. Now, the zombies are essentially useless, but they do sometimes occasionally lead to some fun moments. I really do feel the devs captured the feeling of being the Nemesis quite well, just between the sound effects and the animations and just the music. Like, he's so imposing. That's a lot of fun for me to play as. You just feel powerful playing as the Nemesis, I think. Even though he's not an OP character. Just everything coming together adds to the fun for me. But I'm not at all surprised with him ending up A tier with the community, and I totally respect that result. It makes sense to me. All right, with 51% voting A tier, we have Pyramid Head. And to me, he's at least A tier, maybe even S tier. I loathe facing him, but I love playing as him. I feel like he's a strong character, and the voice lines and the animations just add to the whole experience for me. I think it's a lot of fun. I enjoy playing as Pinhead. Now, I'm not surprised by A tier being the final result, but I'm a little surprised that so many people voted B or C tier because I truly think he's fun to play. And I'm actually curious if people not finding him fun to face, because I'm pretty sure that's a common sentiment among the community. I'm wondering if that influenced the poll numbers at all. All right, with 50% voting A tier, we have the Artist. And this is another one that I have to diverge from the community on. There's a lot I really like about the Artist. I think she's a strong character overall as well, but I just do not enjoy playing as her. So for me, she's probably a low B, even C tier, to be honest. I don't like it. And I'm a little surprised actually that the community put her in A tier because I feel like not many people play as the Artist, but I could be wrong on that. Again, I don't play much Survivor, so my perspective is a little skewed sometimes. All right, now Onryo ends up in A tier, but her votes were all over the place. We have 14% S tier, 39% A tier, 31% B tier, and 16% C tier. Running it through the formula, she arrives at A tier. Now, I'm happy with the result, but I'm not at all surprised that the community was all over the place on this one. I'd personally put her A tier. I think she's a lot of fun to play. She's definitely on the weaker side, and with no real good anti-loop, I can definitely understand why a lot of people wouldn't find her that much fun to play. Personally, for me, I think, again, between the atmospheric stuff, the music, the sound effects, the animations, just the fact that you can scare the crud out of survivors, I think she's a lot of fun to play, even if she's on the weaker side. So I'd agree with A tier. All right, 50% of people voted to put Dredge in A tier as well, and I'm pleasantly surprised with this one. I agree. I think he's a lot of fun to play. I do find the Dredge is very map dependent depending on the locker spawns. Now, someone pointed out to me that actually knowing how to use his Remnant and mind game with that can actually fix some of the map issues. To be honest, I'm not yet very good at mind gaming survivors with the Remnant, so to me, a bad map can really affect me. but I still have a lot of fun playing as the Dredge, and there's so many atmospheric elements to playing as him, just between the animations again, the music, the sound effects, all of it. I think it all comes together to create a really fun package overall. I've always enjoyed playing as the Dredge. So yeah, I think A tier is fitting. Coming in with 51% voting A tier, we have Wesker. And I'm a little surprised, actually. I thought he'd end up in S tier. I thought more people would vote S tier. Now, I'm good with him being A tier. I think he's A tier fun. Yeah, I like him a lot. I think he's, very enjoyable to play. I think it's a lot of fun to grab survivors, hit them against the wall, throw them. It leads to some good moments for sure. Now, I personally put him A tier. That feels right to me. I do enjoy playing as Wesker, but there's a few that I would put in S tier that I would say I enjoy a whole lot more. So ultimately, no disagreement for me here with him being in A tier. All right, next up we have the S tier. Starting this off is Huntress. Now, 48% voted S tier and 37% voted A tier, but then the other two tiers were single digits. So the end result ends up being S tier. And I totally agree. She is one of my favorite characters to play. I have a lot of fun with Huntress. And to be honest, she's probably close to equal in terms of fun for me as Plague. I don't know. I find her play style very engaging, and the lullaby just adds to the atmosphere, makes it super creepy. And I love that when characters can do that. So, you know me, atmosphere is a big deal into making the whole package fun. And I think Huntress is a lot of fun that way. And I think she honestly expresses some of the most personality out of any of the characters, which just adds to the overall enjoyment for me. Her palette stun is great. There's so much I love about Huntress. S tier is definitely fitting. All right, Demo got 59% voting S tier, and I am not surprised at this at all. He's one of the most balanced characters in the game, and so it totally makes sense that a lot of people would have a lot of fun playing as him. And he's got a lot of things going for him. I always have fun playing as Demo, so he's an easy S tier for me. Easy agree. All right, next up with 49% voting S tier and 36% voting A tier, we have Oni. So he ends up in S tier, and I'm also not surprised. I know the community feels very good about Oni. He's a lot of fun. He's a very strong character. And what's not to love about racing around the map with a huge club? I mean, come on. He's great. And then finally, in S tier, we have the Skull Merc. I'm just kidding. It's Blight. 63% voted S tier, the highest voted character in this entire roster. And I'd agree. I think it's very satisfying to go into a rush, to bounce off stuff, and to hit a survivor. That's just so good. So with the highest S tier vote, we might even be able to say he's the favorite in the community. And he's a lot of fun. I'm not surprised. I'm not even that good with him, and I have fun with him. So not at all surprising. I think S tier is very fitting. So that is where you, my community, chose to rank all of these characters. Let me know down in the comments, were you surprised by any of the results? Do you disagree with any of them? Or do you agree with them overall? Let me know. I love chatting with you all down there. If you enjoyed this video, can you let me know by hitting that like button? And would you consider subscribing if you haven't already? Now, the polls for the next video are live on my community tab, so if you want to go head over there and vote on those, that'd be awesome. And as always, you are awesome, stay awesome, and we'll see you in the next episode. Cheers. All right, next up with 64% voting C tier is Twins. What? Alexa, cancel. What the heck? Okay, where were we? For me, that makes it a lot more fun when the atmosphere just gets set right. That's we're setting the mood. That's a weird. Am I talking about DBD or am I talking about the DBD dating sim? You tell me.